senatorial legend Graham Richardson and New South Wales Liberal Senator Holly Hughes. Welcome, team.
Evening,
thanks very much, Chris.
Hey, Richo.
Holly.
One of the Liberal Party's most experienced campaigners, Queensland LNP Senator James McGrath, says the Liberals are cooked. He's told The Telegraph numerous divisions are beset by fractional warfare, weird policy priorities, ageing members, spiv warlords and a dying local campaign structure. Richo, what evidence do you see or sense of what James McGrath is pointing to?
Isn't he a great bloke? Love his description. Look, I can't say that my knowledge of the Liberal Party is as deep as James McGrath, but I've actually known McGrath for a long time. And I think he's a really bright guy, and he's someone the Liberals ought to be listening to. Frankly, I've been really surprised that he hasn't been more promoted by the Liberals in government, because this guy's really, I think, really quite something. But obviously, the Liberals are going to have to do something. Now, whether that means you have to sort of chuck everything out and start again, I don't know. I doubt it. It's not as if they got thrashed. It's not as if the Liberals are a tiny minority in the Parliament. This isn't Western Australia, where there's only 3 of them or something in the Parliament. Here, there's still a very sizable opposition, and they'll do pretty well. I mean, I think there's plenty of them that are clever people. I'm not one of those who runs around bagging Peter Dutton. I think Peter Dutton's a really bright guy, and I think he's more than capable of changing his attitudes a little bit. Not where his heart is, but he needs to change sometimes that sternness that he gets. That where
the Undertaker look.
Yeah, well, he turns everything into a life and death fight. You don't need to do that. It's not all life and death. And so I think he could tone that down a bit, but I'm sure he will. I mean, he'll have everybody telling him that. He'll have plenty of people advising him, and they'll all be saying the same thing. And he's no dill, Dutton. So he'll take heed of it. I would have thought.
Holly, some of what James McGrath is saying, I think, has weight, because it doesn't help when the New South Wales Liberal Party can't decide on the candidates in 7 of its seats until the 11th hour, and they aren't willing to tear up the membership of miserable old ghost Malcolm Turnbull either.
Look, I think what's interesting is when you look at some of the people that were under challenge and why there were delays in pre-selections, people like Susan Lee, people like Mel McIntosh, all of whom got a swing to them. And there was a reason why we needed to protect those members of Parliament from pre-selection challenges, from fringe elements within the division who had spent a great deal of time stacking out branches against them, particularly under this new plebiscite model that's been introduced. New South Wales has also faced this ridiculous new model of a state executive with 29 or something board members. I mean, anyone who's ever sat on a serious board knows that you can't achieve anything with 29 members. Well, not only that, they also have this ridiculous threshold of a 90% agreement rate. Yeah. So there was this one rump that was able to stop everything, and every time something did go through, this rump took things to court. So part of that rump, I understand, is now no longer a member of the party. Do I think we do need to go back and have a look at these big reforms that were introduced a few years ago that I think might have looked really nice in La La Land, but in effect have actually created a problem? Because we're a political party, as is the Labor Party, as is the National Party, as is the Greens, and in fact, as is the Teal fake independents, there to win seats, not appease everybody and make them feel warm and fuzzy about themselves. We need people who are going to win seats and represent the community effectively and not pander to a branch-stacked group, which was what was happening in some of those seats.
Well, Richo, we found out the answer as to why the Labor Party had a swing against it of 18% today from the one and only Kristina Keneally. COVID lockdowns. Who would have thought, Richo?
Oh, bless her. Bless her.
There was one reason for the swing in Fowler, and that was Keneally herself. You can't get parachuted in the way she was from Scotland Island. You dive over into the West. It looks bad. It is bad. It's something that Labor just shouldn't try to do. And I opposed it, by the way. I told the powers that be at the time it was a dumb move, and I think history has proved me correct. When the crunch comes, you can't make that person in the $2,000 dress at Fairfield Shops looked normal to the western suburbs. She isn't normal to the western suburbs, and she never will be. And I think finally, the Labor Party may have woken up to the fact that she's been promoted up often enough. Never worked. It never ever worked. Every promotion has turned out to be a dud. Let's just leave her alone now. Let's just let her get along with her life, and we'll get along with ours.
I love that. Great philosophy from you, Richo. Always we get great philosophy. Now, Holly, tomorrow's a big day for the coalition. The Libs look like handing the leadership baton to Peter Dutton, Susan Lee, without a haggle, but it could be a three-way, even four-way tussle in the National Party room. Will Barnaby Joyce survive, do you think?
Look, I'm not going to comment on what happens in the National Party room, and they would very much be aware that I wouldn't appreciate the National Party commentary on what goes on in the Liberal Party room. I think it's fantastic, though, that the Liberal Party has come together, has got behind both Dutz and Susan. I think they're going to be fantastic. I think they're exactly what we need as we look to rebuilding into the future. Dutz is going to be amazing, and the fact that so many in the Labor Party are already starting to smear him shows that that's exactly what they're afraid of, because there is no one that is going to call them more to account than Peter Dutton.
Holly.
He has actually held, as has Susan, significant portfolios, whereas we've got a treasurer with training wheels on now. We've got Katie Gallagher, as McCrown just said, you know, her biggest job before this was mayor of a city. You know, these guys just aren't up to the job. We saw that in the campaign. And Peter Dutton and Susan Lee are certainly going to lead the team, holding them to account.
We saw this massive personal attack against Scott Morrison during his last 3 years. I have a feeling we might see the same with Peter Dutton, because there are Facebook pages running around that say, "I hate Peter Dutton," with thousands of members bagging him senselessly. How will he handle the personal attacks that might come his way?
Mate, seriously, what kind of losers are these people? I mean, how much time do they have on their hands? Get a life, people. You know what? Dutz is going to give it about as much thought as I'm going to, as you're going to, as plenty of other people are going to. They're these little echo chambers on social media that talk to themselves. And quite frankly, they're not what we'd call swinging voters, Chris. They're not people that we're looking at trying to swing. So they're not really our people. So they can go into their echo chamber, they can entertain themselves, do whatever they want. I think what's dangerous, though, if we look at what happened during the election campaign, every policy that was announced by Scott, by Josh, or any of our ministerial team, it was very quickly echoed by the Labor Party. Oh, us too, we'll do that too. Yep, we'll do this. Or, you know, they're going to do $10 off the PBS, we're going to do $12.50. They weren't coming up with any of their own ideas. What are they going to do now? They're not going to have anyone that they can copycat off. They're actually going to have to come up with their own ideas. So I'm afraid, I think you're right. We've seen time and again that the only thing these people have is personal smears and attacks. They certainly don't have policy ideas. Yes, we've lost a third of the mean girls, but she was out there doing an interview with Peter Fitzsimons today that I have to say I found so distasteful, in the fact that she was still laying the blame at Kimberly Kitching's feet for the way she was treated. I mean, honestly, I forced myself to read it. Between Kristina Keneally and Peter Fitzsimons, I can't think which is worse, but I forced myself to read it.
Quickly.
And it was vile.
Just
vile.
one quick thing. Richo, China has tied up the Solomon Islands. The Prime Minister there has almost a hate for Australia. They've signed a collaborative agreement with Samoa. China's Foreign Minister has 6 more nations to visit. Our only form of defence is Penny Wong. How did we get here?
Well, obviously the government has been missing on this for years. And I think it snuck up on us. That obviously intelligence here just didn't pick it, because we haven't been looking at this and saying, well, God, we'll have everyone up there, we'll fix this. There's been no attempt to fix it because we didn't know there was a problem. A terrible intelligence failure. ASIO's got to be kicked right up the bum for that, and somebody's got to be held responsible. You can't just let a failure as massive as this go by and not have one head roll. There's got to be some rolling heads. I want to see them just rolling right down the road, because this is just absolutely unacceptable to all of us, and it's dangerous. This is a dangerous world, and when you have the Chinese coming this close to your borders, it's getting even more dangerous.
Yeah, very, very true. Richo, Holly Hughes, great to have you on the program. Have a great week.